Welcome to the Consul General. I would like to thank Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz, the rabbi of this shul, Kiryat Yesharim. And the Rabbi Emeritus, Haskell Lookstein, Riva Alper, the administrator. And I also want to express my thanks to the founders of JNS, Josh and Amelia Katzen. Josh, I think that when you founded JNS, you didn't know how important this organization was going to become. I think it took a lot of vision and foresight on your part, and your dedication to many Jewish organizations, including Camera and others that you're a member of the board on, and your early support for a long-shot presidential candidate who just so happened to be one of the best friends Israel's ever had in the White House was absolutely prescient, and I think that you're actually becoming one of the most important lay leaders in the American Jewish diaspora. So thank you, and thank you to Amelia. Thanks also to our editor-in-chief, Jonathan Tobin, who we'll talk a little bit more about later. Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan, the nominee to be special envoy and ambassador at large to combat anti-Semitism. We're waiting for your nomination to be confirmed. And with that, we are going to get the program started, and we will begin by welcoming everybody and singing the national anthems of the State of Israel and the United States of America. I'd like to welcome to the stage Cantor Chaim David Burson of this beautiful shul, Kiryat Yesharim.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומייה, ואתם מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. לא Thank you very much. תודה רבה.
That was amazing. Whew. How do you follow that? Ladies and gentlemen, first I'd like to address the elephant in the room, or rather the giant who is not in the room. Prime Minister Netanyahu unfortunately canceled his appearance with us this evening. And while we're certainly disappointed, on behalf of all of you who came to show him honor and support, we are hopeful that the meetings taking place this evening and tomorrow at the White House with President Trump will be both productive and successful. We can be sure that they will be consequential. The outcomes of those meetings are likely to chart a course not only for Israel, but for the entire Middle East for decades to come. That is visionary leadership. To recognize the challenges, opportunity, and obligation to act over and above what others believe is possible or required in a particular moment. To do what is necessary to improve and strengthen the future of the Jewish people, and for that matter, the greater Middle East, Western civilization, and civilization as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, for 2 years, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been actively guiding Israel through an existential battle against murderous terrorists. His decisions have led not only to the near complete annihilation of Hamas, but the neutralization of Hezbollah, the demilitarization of Syria, and the disarmament of Iran's illicit nuclear program. At the same time, the Prime Minister is fighting a diplomatic war against what he termed at the UN on Friday, weak-kneed Western leaders who support the aims of terrorists over the aspirations of the democratic Jewish state. And he also fights against the dark, quote-unquote, deep shtetl in Israel that works night and day to undermine the democratically elected leaders of our country. It is the same deep shtetl that pushed for the failed Oslo Accords two-state land for peace paradigm, for the failed withdrawal from Gaza in 2005, and has been blocking the streets and protesting in Israel for more than 5 years, and has openly warned of a civil war. This deep shtetl may have helped to build the Jewish state with blood, sweat, and tears, but today, by their words and actions, they are choosing to stand on the wrong side of history. As the Prime Minister saw on Friday, when most of the delegates walked out before the beginning of his address to the United Nations General Assembly, leadership is often lonely. But the Prime Minister is not leading alone. The war for Israel's survival is being fought bravely by hundreds of thousands of soldiers and reservists, risking their own lives, some tragically losing them in battle, in defense of the Jewish homeland. Others have been fighting battles on the policy level, others on the diplomatic level, still others on the spiritual level. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know, JNS has been leading the fight night and day on the media battlefront. The war of narratives, the fight for public opinion. And here too, leadership can be lonely. Looking around at the mainstream media, led by the likes of Al Jazeera, the AP, Reuters, the New York Times, CNN, BBC, the list goes on and on. JNS is fighting against the forces of a multi-billion-dollar industry. Worse, much of the Jewish and Israeli media do little to defend the Jewish state against the biased mainstream media. They too are biased against Israel's government. And in the process of trying to convince Israelis that they've chosen the wrong elected leaders, these publications and their influencers are irreparably harming Israel's diplomatic image and the relationship between Israel and the diaspora. As the Prime Minister said when he actually attended and brilliantly addressed our JNS summit in Jerusalem this past April, JNS has been a powerful source of truth amidst the lies. JNS has stepped up to the plate since October 7th, doubling our staff size, increasing our output tenfold, and increasing our reach by orders of magnitude. But here too, leaders are not alone. There are each and every one of you here today. There are an incredible roster of speakers here this evening, and there are millions, if not tens and hundreds of millions more just like us, that live and breathe Am Yisrael Chai. That said, leaders almost always need to do more. Israel has survived and succeeded on the battlefield due to the bravery of our soldiers, but also due to our military superiority. When enemies fire missiles and rockets, Israel shoots them out of the sky. Israel has the world's best planes and best precision-guided weapons, offensive and defensive. And Israel may or may not have, ambiguity intended here, the world's most powerful weapons to serve as a deterrent against any force that seeks our annihilation. Israel has fought and continues to fight bravely on 7 fronts. The Prime Minister refers to the battle of information as the 8th front. It is actually this 8th front where our enemies believe they can actually defeat the Jewish state. Ladies and gentlemen, we must not let that happen, and we will not let that happen. Just as Israel has invested billions and billions of dollars into securing Israel's qualitative military edge on the battlefield, we must now invest heavily in the information battlefield. We are being dramatically outspent by our opponents, who control the newsrooms of the mainstream media, who control university Middle Eastern study centers, and who control the world's most powerful social media algorithms and bot farms. I'm calling today for the supporters of Israel to make a massive investment into the information battlefield. Like every other battlefront, this is an arena that we can and must win. We must take all of our technological expertise and all of our available resources to develop methods to launch and win a significant counter-information campaign. Even with massive investment, we may not see an immediate turnaround, but the Jewish story is a long one. We can and will win back public opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, the decisions that are being made by Israel's Prime Minister and the victories on the kinetic battlefield have the potential to usher in an era of peace and prosperity in Israel and across the greater Middle East. When this happens, Israel must be well positioned to ultimately win the battle of narratives, to tell the truth, and to disseminate it far and wide. Today, you will hear from great leaders. Each has been fighting to protect and strengthen Israel and the Jewish people. And by doing so, they're also fighting to protect and strengthen the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, we must be proud of how we turned a moment of great darkness and despair, October 7th, into an opportunity to dismantle Iran's regional terror axis. We must be proud of our soldiers' bravery, and we must be proud of the small but mighty Jewish state and a Jewish people that have endured and will continue to endure. One of the keys to endurance is Jewish unity. The enemies of the Jewish people don't care if we are living in Israel or in the diaspora. They don't care if we are religious or secular, left-wing or right-wing, voted for Prime Minister Netanyahu or would never vote for Prime Minister Netanyahu. They single us out for our identity as Jews. Let us all stand together as Jews in this moment of existential crisis and generational opportunity. Let us also remember that the ultimate key to our endurance is our faith in God above. We are gathered here between the holy days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in one of New York City's oldest and most respected synagogues. On the afternoon of Yom Kippur, we read the story of the prophet Jonah, who thought he could escape God's call to influence the behavior of a large city, Nineveh. Today, we are receiving that call to win the information war, to put policies into place that will protect our people and our civilization. Let us answer that call with resounding fortitude and resolve. Let us collectively thank God for the miracles we've witnessed on the battlefield. Let us pray for the return of our hostages. Let us pray for the speedy recovery of all of our injured soldiers. And let us stand together. And let us stand together as one nation in asking for forgiveness for our sins and for successes in the year ahead. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to welcome the chair of this Leadership Assembly, my friend and mentor, Richard Heidemann.
Alex, kol hakavod, and thank you for your leadership and for all that you do and the leadership that is provided by JNS for all of us in the world who care about issues and care about solutions. The Prime Minister intended to be here tonight. The Prime Minister wanted to be here tonight. And the Prime Minister, on the one hand, regrets that he's not able to be here, but on the other hand, we should know, and we should all appreciate, that he is dealing with serious issues of state, and he is dealing with the future of Israel and the Jewish people, and he is dealing with the essential and most important relationship between Israel and the United States of America. We have received a video message for all of you from the Prime Minister, and we begin with that.
Dear friends, I'd hoped to be with you in person tonight, and I plan to be with you in person tonight, but circumstances have caught up with us. I have to prepare for a very important meeting with President Trump tomorrow in Washington. I'm sure you'll understand. But first I want to acknowledge the best of friends that Israel has, and I and Sarah personally have. The first one is Richard Heidman. I actually wrote down the list to make sure I don't lose or miss any of you. The chairman of JNS Leadership Council, Alex Tremaine, the CEO, Elise Stefanik. You did an amazing job. The context issue, you hit them right on the nose. Tila Falik, part of the Falik family, our dear friends. Sean McGuire of Sequoia, you joined the battle, and we welcome it. Of course, we have Ambassador Danny Danon and Consul General Ophir Akunis holding the fort here in America, and Jonathan Tobin of JNS, and of course, how is he called? The great Mark Levin. I mean, the great Mark Levin, just a man of courage and truth and an indomitable spirit. And we even went to the same high school. He is more than a friend. He is a guardian of Israel. The main message I want to leave with you today is that we must fight, and we must fight on all fronts until we achieve victory. It's not always easy. Some of it will take longer in some arenas than others, but we have to achieve victory. And the most important place where we have to fight is the battle for truth, the battle against the vilifications and the lies that are hurled at our people. That's been the case for millennia, and these lies change form as they do now, but we have to continue fighting them. I don't think we'll get rid of them, but we can mitigate their damage. The most important thing that has happened to our people is that before the rise of Israel, these lies always preceded a massacre, and often successful massacres, and pogroms and exiles, culminating in the worst massacre of them all in the Holocaust. The great change that has happened is, one, yes, we're able to also fight the lies to a point, and two, we're able to defend ourselves, and defend ourselves with all the power and might of the Jewish people and of the Maccabees of old, the Maccabees of today. That is the fundamental change that has happened to us. But I think that you should be proud of the fact that you are the modern Maccabees of the battle for truth. So keep it up, and thank you on behalf of the Jewish people, on behalf of the Jewish state. And one final word. In these 2 years, we turned the tables around. On day 2 of the war, I said we'll create a different Middle East, and we have. But there's still work to do. We'll continue to do everything in our power to release all our hostages, to have Hamas lay down its arms, to demilitarize Gaza, to create a different future, a better future for Israel, for the region. I think it's within our power. Thank you.
We gather here tonight in the shadow of the United Nations. The Prime Minister spoke on Friday. You're all aware of what he said, and Alex so eloquently highlighted a number of points. But I would briefly like to take you back in history. I'm not going to go all the way back to the partition plan or all the way back to the declaration of Israel as a nation state. I'm not going to go back to Israel having become a full member of the family of nations at the United Nations. Instead, I'm only going to go back to the 1970s, when after the Yom Kippur War, it was the United Nations that adopted the equation Zionism equals racism. Who loves a racist? No one. Who loves a criminal racist? No one. Who loves an apartheid advocating, practicing criminal racist? No one. Although the Zionism racism resolution was overturned by the United Nations itself, maybe early in the 1990s, nevertheless, we saw on the grounds of the United Nations Conference, first in Nairobi and later in Durban, just before 9/11, we saw a hate fest, and we cared. And the Jewish organizations cared, and the United States cared, and Israel cared, and a few of our allies cared, but most of the world didn't care. And that's 25 years ago. The Durban Conference in Durban, South Africa, a conference to stand against racism, turned into a conference of racism against Israel and the Jewish people. And the world didn't care. The Durban Declaration that was adopted there became the platform, the program, if you will, of the last 25 years. And during that program, what have we seen? We've seen seeds of hate from that hate fest grow into and blossom into full trees. We saw the Second Intifada continue and murder and maim with suicide bombers, and the world didn't care. We saw the establishment of the electronic Intifada in 2005, and the world didn't care. We saw the beginning of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and not only didn't the world care, but look at today. The world has joined that movement. The world is advocating for that movement, and we are paying the price. We're paying the price in our communities. We're paying the price on our campuses. We're paying the price in our shuls. We're paying the price with our own allies. We're paying the prices politically. We are paying for it in every possible way. It's taking lives, it's taking our good name and our reputation, and we here have the opportunity to do something about it. Each of you came here tonight not just to hear the Prime Minister, although we're sure that many of you had hoped to be able to say hello, to say Shana Tova, to say thank you, to say have an easy fast, have a safe day, have a safe trip, have good meetings with the President. We are sorry that you weren't able to do that in person, but we want you to understand this is not just a gathering about the Prime Minister and his visionary leadership and determination, because each of the presenters that we have assembled to bring to you tonight in this JNS Visionary Leadership Assembly are leaders in their own right. They are fearless. They are determined. They are absolutely committed to building a better future for Israel, for the United States, for the Jewish people, for people of all faiths and people from all walks of life. A closing comment. Each of you, having come here tonight, I would ask you, please, think about when you leave here tonight, what you can do in your shul, in your church, what you can do in your community, what you can do with those who govern in your community or your state or in the country. Think about the catalyst each of you are. You, your families, your friends, your companies, your foundations, your employees, all of those with whom you are affiliated. We need an echo chamber, and we hope and pray that during these days of awe, from this shul will come forth an echo chamber in which each of you will play a meaningful role. How can you do so? Be your own visionary leader. Do not be afraid. If we do not stand up for ourselves, believe me, we all know no one will stand up for us. So let us think about what is it we can do. We can speak, we can think, we can write, we can share, we can give ideas, we can give financial support, We can love our families and encourage our young people to go to their classes and not sit on the sidelines, but rather stand up, be counted. Let each of us in our communities, in our organizations, in our families, in our companies, let each of us strive during this coming year. Let us not wait another year, because the Jewish people cannot afford for us to wait another year. Alex mentioned something that everybody wants. It's called unity. I want to share with you an alternate view. Oftentimes, Jewish organizational leadership, when they call for unity, what are they saying? They're saying, "Shah still." They're saying, "I will speak for you." They're saying, "I will chart the path." They are saying, "I know better." But the fact of the matter is, we are in difficult days. We are in challenging times. And none of us know yet what tomorrow will bring, or the tomorrows of the future will bring. And therefore, let us have unity in this congregation, in this shul, that we will band together to see to it that we stand against those countries in the United Nations that have voted against us, and we display them. We make it clear that everybody knows who are the haters and who are the lovers. And we make it clear that when we seek unity, it's not for Shah still, because Shah still never worked in our history. It will only work if we are each visionary leaders standing together, making a difference, and enabling those around us to feel the strength, the power, the wisdom, and the vision to also stand together for the future of Israel, the Jewish people, and our many allies of all religions and from many countries around the world. Thank you for joining us here tonight.
Representing the Israeli government here in New York City is a former advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, a longtime Knesset member, and former minister, holding portfolios as Minister of Science and Technology, Minister of Labor, Social Affairs and Social Services, and Minister of Regional Cooperation. It is now my pleasure and privilege to welcome to the stage the Honorable Consul General of New York, Ophir Akunis.
Thank you, Alex. Shalom lekulam. Good afternoon. Shana tova. Shavua tov. It is an honor to be here with you all. I want to thank the JNS and their leadership for hosting this important event. My friends, you are doing what all media should be doing: reporting on stories based on facts. You are serious journalists who reflect the truth in a time where it is not common. Thank you all for all you do. Thank you so much. Toda rabba lachem. Thank you so much to all of you. Alex as well. My friends, before I'll start, on behalf of the State of Israel, I want to thank Mayor Adams for his unwavering support and friendship towards the Jewish communities and the State of Israel. We will never forget his courageous speech a few moments after the October 7th massacre. It was much appreciated. Thank you, Eric, and good luck. My friends, we are living in Israel's most challenging time since our establishment in 1948. Yes, Richard, this is the most challenge. I think First of all, since I was born, 4 months before the Yom Kippur War, it was the same story. Almost zero intelligence, almost. And our enemies invaded to the state of Israel on October 6th, Yom Kippur. Then October 7th, Simchat Torah. So, as Alex said, we are not only facing a battle on a 7-front battlefield, but an 8-front as well, one of lies and misinformation being spread by many international leaders and media. And the truth is, unfortunately, we are living in totally upside-down world. In this world, in our world, the truth has become the lie. The blood libels that are being spread by the Hamas monsters and Qatar, Hamas and Qatar, always remember this. They are not alone. It's not only Hamas. It's Hamas and Qatar together. So Hamas spread their Hamas monsters, I have to tell you, and they are becoming the truth in many people's eyes, and the aggressors are pretending to be the victims. And I want to ask those hypocrite international leaders and the journalists as well. Did we invade Gaza on October 7th? Was it Israel who raped women and burned all families alive? Did we kidnap hundreds, actually 251 innocent people and bring them into the dark dungeons? I think that we all know exactly what they would do if their sovereign borders were invaded. So, instead of criticizing Israel, they need to criticize Hamas and Qatar to release the hostages. My dear friends, no one needs to convince us that we want our brothers home. So instead of bring them home, I will say, let them go. Let them go. And Richard, you mentioned the General Assembly. Various leaders around the world have decided to reward the terrorists with the recognition of their own state. Yeah? My friends, supporting Hamas and the Palestinians now is not just a weak policy by weak leaders, but rather serve as their small political interest within their own countries. This is the truth. I'm not afraid of the truth. The truth is the most important thing. As you just said, Richard, we must say the truth. Now, I want to tell you, my friend, it was not by accident that Hamas was the first one to cheer on the recognition. One of their leaders even said that this is the result and goal of October 7th. Unbelievable. So I'm saying here to those prime ministers and presidents, you are acting like weak leaders, just like Chamberlain acted toward the Nazis in the 30s. Instead of standing against the Nazis, Chamberlain stood with them, and you are standing with more than Nazis. History will remember your actions, and you will be known for this, like the leaders who signed the Munich Treaty in 1938. But my friends, this is the year of 2025. And Israel will not be the Czech Republic. We will not. We will not be victims of your weak and cowardness policies. Now, before I'll continue, I remember I heard firsthand from my late grandmother, Bonia Lustig, Zichra Livracha. She described me the German invasion to Poland on September 1st. Then the Jewish people, we acted like victims. Now we have the IDF, and the Prime Minister talked about the new Maccabees. Thank you, the new Maccabees. Now I want to say another thing about those leaders. No one can tell themselves, journalists or leaders, when support a terror organization and state, instead of standing with the only free democracy in the Middle East, I will tell you, the land of Israel is ours. The land is ours. We will never give it up or apologize for defending ourselves. Hamas is using the support of many leaders to launch modern-day blood libels, propaganda campaigns against the Jewish people like the old days, like the most recent of starvation in the Gaza Strip. Many media outlets posted fake photos produced inside the Gaza Strip instead of publishing the truth. As we saw, the truth was revealed. And the state of Israel will continue to share and stand for the truth. As I will continue to say, the truth always prevails the lies, and the light will always prevail the darkness. In moments like the times we are living, it takes courage to speak out for the truth. As I said to the Prime Minister 2 days ago during our Kabbalat Shabbat service here in New York, thank you, Prime Minister, for continuing to stand for the truth. I thank him for his courage, for his right and moral policies, almost alone, and for the fact that the state of Israel, under his leadership, is changing the Middle East. Do you want the new Middle East? This is the new Middle East. We are changing the Middle East from a region that is controlled by Iran and its proxies to one that in the end will be full of progress, real peace, and secure borders for generations to come. And before we wish a successful meeting tomorrow at the White House to the Prime Minister, I want to tell you that it's beside the challenges, there's huge opportunity, a huge opportunity with new Syria and Lebanon. There's no reason that Lebanon will not be part of Abraham Accords. There's no reason. There's one. Hezbollah. That's the only reason. If Hezbollah will not be there, I'm sure that Lebanon will be part of the Abraham Accords. I heard from another grandmother, Adi's grandmother. My grandmother came from Poland, and from the other side from Saloniki, from Greece. But Adi's grandmother, she came from Syria. And she moved to Israel through Lebanon, through Beirut. And we heard lovely stories about this beautiful place with a boardwalk, very fashionable, and even discotheques and bars, Lebanon. So they ruined the Christian state of Lebanon. The Syrians, and then Hezbollah, supported by Iran. We want to live in peace with Lebanon. There's no reason, and we will wait until, and it's very close, that the Hezbollah will not be there. And I hope this is the days of Cheshbon Nefesh. This is days of Cheshbon Nefesh. We all need to do Cheshbon Nefesh. I'm doing it every night. Every night I'm coming to our apartment, not very far from here, and I'm doing my Cheshbon Nefesh. We all, Richard, the Jewish communities around the world must do a deep Cheshbon Nefesh before Yom Kippur. And I'm very optimistic about our future because we are, the Jewish people, an ancient nation with one great future. Gmar Chatima Tova lekulchem, Shana Tova, Toda Rabba. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and I wish to introduce for a moment my good friend, Tila Falik.
It's usually really hard to speak to a room of people that are not like-minded or disagree. But here we're in a room full of family, friends, like-minded people, friends of Israel, and lovers of freedom and democracy. It seems like many have painted a very dark picture, and it's true, the Jewish people are going through a very difficult time in history. But we're also a living miracle, because we're going through a difficult time in history where we have our own land, where we have our own army, where we have friends everywhere we look. And there's a lot of noise on campus, there's a lot of noise outside of the Prime Minister's hotel, there's a lot of noise on TV, but it's just that. It's noise. A few weeks ago, I invited a delegation of presidents of universities of Israel, the Student Union Association of every university, and the main president of the entire student union came to DC, and they wanted an experience of what it was like to be a Jew in DC. They thought they were gonna get attacked. They thought they were gonna be questioned. They thought they were gonna experience anger, danger. And instead, they went home feeling so empowered, so happy, so inspired, because they met real friends of Israel and real friends of the Jewish people. Everyday Americans and leaders of this administration are friends of Israel. And we started off at the Holocaust Museum, which I now sit on the board with some of my amazing friends here. Leo Terrell came to speak to these students. And they looked at me and said, "Where did you find this guy?" I said, "I didn't find him. He's a very well-known and important person, and he's part of the administration." And then we went to Congress, and they heard from a senator, Bernie Moreno, and a congressman, Brian Mass, real friends of the Jewish people, of Judeo-Christian values, of Americans, of Israel, of Jews. And they said to me, "We didn't know these people existed." So I told them, you're standing in the most important city of the world, in the most important building of the world. This is where decisions are made. And these are the people making those decisions. We are lucky, and we have to thank God every day to be living in a time where Jews are living a miracle. For 3,000 years, we dreamt of coming home, and we're home. Liot am chovshi ve'artzeinu, to be a free nation in our own land, the land that God promised to Abraham. And in the same moment, he created the Jewish people, the Torah of Israel, the first Jew, and the land of Israel. He told him to go to the land that he will show him. And that land is proof every day of God's miracle. No one is going to take that home away from us. We heard from the Prime Minister that Jewish blood is no longer cheap, and thank God for that. We have an army, we can fight, we have leaders, Jewish and not Jewish. I heard from Huckabee last week at an inauguration for Ir David, an incredible new site that connects the city of David with the Temple Mount. Another proof, living proof of our history and of our heritage. And he said, "Welcome home." For somebody that is not Jewish and understands the promise of the Jewish people and tells the Jews in their homeland, "Welcome home," friends, that's a miracle. And that's what we're experiencing right now. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm not here to teach you something new. I'm here to give you chizuk, to give you strength in your convictions, in your actions, in what you believe in. We are done apologizing. We're done appeasing those who support the forces solely focused on destroying us. Done with convincing the world that terrorists are bad, that Jews are good, that Israel is a light unto the nations. Israel is a vibrant, multicultural, ethnically and religiously diverse democratic nation that values life to the same extent that we value and we fight for our dead bodies, our dead hostages, to be returned the same as those that are still living. We sacrifice hundreds of the enemy to get back one of our own. We hold elections, we seek peace, we lead world in technological and medical advancements, intelligence that saves millions of lives every single day. We go to greater lengths than any nation in history to preserve life, even that of our enemies, well beyond anything that anyone has really seen before. We fight in a way that preserves integrity because that's who we are, not who they are. We honor all of the people who died because they couldn't fight. We fight an enemy that has no standards. They're monsters. They're not human. And we never accept the lowering of our own values because of somebody else. We welcome all the allies who believe in all the good that is in the world, especially our friends in the United States of America. We believe in freedom, peace, democracy, hope, and prosperity. But the most precious ideals come at a very heavy cost. We will continue to fight for truth, as everybody has said here, and we will thank God every single day that we don't have to do it alone. We live in a wonderful country who shares the values and supports Israel. We can be Jews, we can believe, we can preach, we can pray, and we can live. Am Yisrael Chai means that we live, we sing, we dance, we celebrate. We celebrate life because that's who we are, and we are incapable of doing anything else. Am Yisrael Chai means something more than just a song. We spoke about Huckabee. We have friends like Erin Mulan, who actually gave me some words here that she wanted me to share on her behalf. And ladies and gentlemen, we have friends in the White House, incredible friends. But I'm here to introduce my good friend, Leo Terrell. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to introduce a very distinguished guest. Leo Terrell is a nationally recognized civil rights attorney, radio and television commentator, and fearless voice for justice. For decades, he has championed constitutional freedoms, equal protection, and the importance of standing firm in the face of intolerance, regardless of who you are or what you believe in. Leo has become a trusted and outspoken advocate on national platforms and all over the world, bringing clarity, conviction, courage, and morality to some of the most pressing issues of our time. His commitment to truth and his unapologetic defense of American values have earned him respect across the country, among the Jewish people, and definitely Israel. Tonight we welcome him as a proud friend of the Jewish people, of the state of Israel, and his voice reminds us that supporting Israel is not a partisan cause, and it's not about who you are and what you believe. It's a moral obligation to stand with democracy, freedom, and the right of the nations to defend themselves. Leo, the Prime Minister said, we are done being survivors. We are warriors. And he called you a guardian of the Jewish people. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to my dear friend, Mr. Leo Terrell.
She almost made me cry with that speech. I'm getting ready to tear up already. Thank you very much for that. And I want very powerful words, Tila. Thank you. I want to ask you as I stand here. And by the way, this hat, some of you may not see it. I will tell you the story about this hat. It's probably not what you think it is, but I will tell you the story about this hat. It's important that you need to know that. I am here to talk about an issue that is bipartisan, has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do whether or not you're a Democrat or a Republican. It's a fundamental issue that I think we can all take and talk about and justify that anti-Semitism is wrong and it should be eliminated. Okay? This is a universal issue that we have an obligation to address and eliminate. And that's why I'm up here today. I'm not up here to support a particular administration. And this is why this is an issue that we have to make sure we set up guardrails now to make sure we're protected after this election in 2026, 2028, and beyond. I happen to work for a man who believes in eliminating anti-Semitism and is a friend of the Jewish community, President Donald J. Trump. I happen, and regardless of party affiliation, I happen to work under the leadership of an attorney general who have told me do everything I can do to eliminate anti-Semitism. Her name is Pam Bondi. And again, party affiliation is meaningless because this is a fundamental issue. Every place I go, every time I speak, I hear this. Oh, Leo, you're doing a great job. You're doing fantastic for the Jewish people. Let me sit here and tell you right now, I'm not doing enough. There is more to be done. You look at what is happening in this country, notwithstanding the fact that we have President Trump and AG Bondi. Look what's going on in this country right now. 2 Israeli staffers murdered in D.C. A woman who survived the Holocaust burned in Colorado. Yes, it's better, but it's not good enough. And that's why it's important that we don't rest, that eliminating anti-Semitism is a 24/7 commitment. People ask me, why do you care? You know, silly. I'm a lawyer. I'm a civil rights lawyer for 35 years. And I'm also a school teacher for almost 40 years. I know my history. I know that in 1909, with the help of Jewish Americans, the NAACP was founded. I know the history. I know in 1964, in June, 2 Jewish activists, Werner and Goodman, were murdered in Mississippi. Why? Because they were fighting for Black Americans to have the same rights as everyone else. Fundamental history. I am happy. I'm ecstatic. I am privileged. I am proud to lead this task force because it's not a Jewish issue. It's not an American issue. This is a Western civilization issue. We must eliminate anti-Semitism or we're going to lose what we value in this world. So the commitment runs deep. It's a 24/7 commitment in my life. And what I find amazing, and you know, I gotta interrupt and change the subject a little bit because what has made my job a little bit easier is the guy who's gonna be speaking shortly, Mark Levin. Okay, because I know Mark, I used to work at Fox News, I was on his show, and before I took this job as head of the task force to combat anti-Semitism, I said, Mark, what do I need? The only person I ask, what do I need to do when I go into this job? And he basically gave me advice that I respected and understood, that I had to stay basically true to my commitment and be aware of the forces that will fight against what I'm trying to do. And I realized one thing, and I want you to know this. religious freedom and religious liberty is a fundamental right in this country and should be throughout the world. And I will never compromise your religious freedom and your religious liberty as I fight to eliminate this scourge in this country and worldwide. Never. This is too important to me because this is what makes America great. This is why people want to live in this country. And so when I look at what's happening in this country, I say, yes, we're doing a good job, but it's not good enough. And I heard the first speaker talk about the information battlefield. He is absolutely right. We are losing the information battlefield. We're being annihilated. We're being destroyed, and the lies that are being told and the response that we have provided is weak. I used to be a school teacher. On the information battlefield, I give us an F. Big, fat F. We have to get the truth out. We have to get the information out. They are lying, and they are winning that war. And what is amazing to me is that we have these reporting news agencies that are, at least on the surface, is responsible for telling the truth. I don't want to embarrass any of these news organizations and tell you who they are. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, all lies. They're lying. And they're beating us. I go back again. I think I'm a better teacher than lawyer because history is so important. I'm pretty old. I'm not too old, but I'm old. And I will submit to you the following fact. In my lifetime, I've never seen anti-Semitism as bad as it is in my lifetime. This is horrific. Now, I taught history, and we know what happened in the 1930s and 1940s, but in my lifetime, this is horrific. And the reason why is because this hate is well-financed, well-organized. And when I mention those organizations, they are plotting these lies to destroy not just the Jewish community, but America and the Western civilization. So we have to really, really commit ourselves. We're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. Because that information battlefield is destroying the minds of our people. They have hijacked our colleges. They won. And now they're going after K-12 in the curriculum, in the lesson plans. The lies run deep, and they're trying to poison the minds of our young people. It's serious. That information battlefield, like I said, we get an F. If I told you otherwise, I would be lying, and I'm not going to lie to you. So here's my commitment. I'm demanding from you more. And you should demand more from me and the administration. They're doing a good job, but not good enough, because I want to say this in closing. We have a historic president in the White House. He's a unicorn. He's a unicorn. I love the man. But his term is over in 3.5 years. So I'm looking at today, and I'm looking at tomorrow. I'm looking at our future, your children, your grandchildren. We got a lot of work to do. We shouldn't feel good about where we are right now. Oh, yes. Some people can say, well, look at the alternative. If he wasn't in office, oh, gosh. But let's look at the facts right now. Work harder. I told my chief of staff, she's right there, get your cars, call me. Let's work together. Let's do more. We need a 50-state solution because hate crimes are all over this country. Let's not get lost on East Coast and West Coast. It's in the Midwest, it's in the South, it's in Oregon, it's in Washington, it's in Iowa. So we need a 50-state solution now. So help me help us, the country, Israel, the world. Help me save this civilization, this great country that we love. Don't get tired, work harder. God bless President Trump, God bless Israel, God bless the United States, and thank you very, very much.
If only we had one man like this in the current administration, we'd be very, very blessed. But we have more than one man like this in the administration.
I'm sorry. I'll speak from here. I forgot to talk about the hat. Thank you for just one last one. How you doing from here? This is not the hat you think it is. I had the privilege to meet the mother of Hadar Golden. She came to my office, her son, and she told me about the story of Hadar Golden, her son, part of the IDF. During the ceasefire in 2014, captured by the IDF, captured by Hamas and killed and kidnapped. And his body remains in the custody, control, and possession of Hamas. So when we talk about the 48 hostages, Hadar Golden is one of those 48. I was in the office and I broke down. I said, what can I do to make sure he's never forgotten? So what I did was I told his mother, and by the way, Hadar has a twin. And he came to my office. I said, what can I do? I promise to wear this hat wherever I go to speak about the hostages, whenever I go on television, wherever I have a chance, because I don't want anyone to forget this man. A mother has a right to bury her son. So there are 48 hostages, and he's one of them.
We see how the administration is committed to fighting anti-Semitism and to engaging with the Jewish community. Our next speaker understands the information battlefield. He's written for many publications, been an editor at publications, and now serves as the special advisor to President Trump and the White House Director of Jewish Engagement. On last October 7th, he arranged a visit for President Trump to visit the Ohel, the burial site of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which I think says a lot about the president's spiritual commitment to the Jewish people. And we're very privileged to have here today Special Advisor to President Trump, Martin J. Marks. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Martin Marks. I'm a special assistant to the president and director of Jewish Engagement, and I have the unenviable task of following Leo Terrell and coming directly before Mark Levin, two fearless warriors who make my job fairly easy. It's been the greatest honor of a lifetime, and I'm going to keep this fairly brief because I believe this is my second time outside of DC since December. All I can tell you is that these issues that we are talking about, having been behind the scenes both on the campaign as the director of Jewish outreach and in my current capacity, these issues weren't things that people were working on January 20th or January 21st. The election was decided, I believe, around 2 o'clock in the morning on November 5th. And on November 6th at 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone was back at the office working on these issues. Tirelessly, day in, day out, there is a commitment to this set of policies, both foreign and domestic, to return us to a policy of peace through strength, not just in the Middle East, but throughout the world. It's one of the greatest honors to serve in President Trump's administration, he is one of the greatest friends of Israel that has been in the White House, and I would go so far as to say he has been, in terms of an administration, one of the greatest friends of the Jewish people since Darius the Great. There is a commitment, and part of what I'm talking about now is behind the scenes. This isn't something public. I very rarely publicly speak, and it's thanks to Alex and the JNS team that I'm even here this evening. I'm leaving in half an hour to go back to DC. As you can imagine, there's a ton of work there. It's the commitment of the people behind the scenes that you hear from Leo Terrell, that you hear from A.G. Bondi, that you hear from Mark Levin, that you hear from these warriors, and I'm here to just tell you that this isn't a unique sentiment, that this is felt across the administration, that the commitment to combating anti-Semitism, to standing with Israel, and to standing with the Jewish people runs deep in the Trump administration. On the campaign trail, when I was meeting with students who had been affected by anti-Semitism, they realized that they were able to sue university administrations thanks to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, but it was only thanks to President Trump's Executive Order 13899 combating anti-Semitism that codified that into law. And I'm just going to close, and I'm keeping this fairly brief because, again, you have far better speakers than I am, with the words of the executive order that he signed on January 29th, 2025, which is, "It shall be the policy of the United States to combat anti-Semitism vigorously, using all available and appropriate legal tools to prosecute, remove, or otherwise hold to account the perpetrators of unlawful anti-Semitic harassment and violence." And that is something that is done not just in terms of domestic policy, not just in terms of foreign policy, not just in terms of policy itself, but in terms of personnel, in terms of the warriors like Leo Terrell, who are serving on the front lines of this battle every day. Gemar Chatima Tova, thank you so much for having me here.
Martin, before you leave, you have a very important position because at what used to be called Outreach Director at the White House and is now Director of Jewish Engagement, we want you to know that across this country, there are Jewish organizations and Jewish people from all sides of the aisle and from all walks of Jewish life who not only appreciate what you do, but also appreciate the stand that President Trump has taken on behalf of the entire Jewish community and on behalf of the State of Israel. So please express our appreciation. Thank you. Last year, I had the privilege of being invited to speak at a conference called the Future of Israel Conference. I didn't know much about it. I did a little homework, and I found out that it was headed by a wonderful, dynamic person who had great vision for the future of Israel and for the Jewish people. As I did my homework, I also found out that she was the former director of policy planning at the United States Department of State during the first Trump administration. and that she is now the chair of the Taube Family Chair of International Relations and Politics at Pepperdine University, and the president and CEO of Forum for America and the World. At her invitation, I flew out to Malibu, beautiful, went to the Pepperdine campus, even more beautiful, and was welcomed with a group of thinkers who were unafraid of standing up and saying what they thought in trying to build a better world for all America, for Israel, for the Jewish people, and for all of our friends. I became enamored with Dr. Chiron Skinner. She is precious, she is committed, and indeed she is a visionary leader. Please welcome Dr. Chiron Skinner.
Alex and Richard kind of made a mistake inviting me here because I have two big issues converging that make it hard when I get a microphone. I'm a professor, we can talk all day, and I think you can figure out I'm African American. And coming out of the Black church tradition, this could go on for a long time. But they said I have only a few minutes, so I will do my best. I have these notes, but I really want to speak from the heart. I think in the 20th century, we did some remarkable work coming out of the Second World War. We saved the world, we saved the West, we gave opportunity to much of the world, we gave an example of the world's most fully functioning multi-ethnic democracy. Maybe we aren't that now. We thought we defeated communism, or we defeated fascism and Nazism, and by the end of the 20th century, we thought we had defeated communism, antisemitism, but we hadn't taken a lot on, and we really hadn't defeated that much. We did victory laps in the 1940s, even though we recognized Israel. We did victory laps in the 80s and 90s with the color revolutions. We thought democracy and peace and freedom would spread. But the thing that we missed at the end of the 20th century is the factor that we're addressing now, and that was the rise of radical Islam. We didn't have the vocabulary yet. When the Iranian Revolution happened, it hit us hard because we didn't know what it really meant. Poor President Jimmy Carter did his best. But there was something, a gathering storm, that would come to define the first decades of the 21st century. 9/11, I often say, mugged the United States in history. And I mean that not as a criticism of the George W. Bush administration, because there were fine statesmen, Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, Don Rumsfeld, Colin Powell, many others, who were ready to develop a grand strategy for the United States and the world, but all of the energy went to protecting the homeland, to fighting the global war on terror. But what we didn't understand is that the global war on terror was a symptom, not the problem, and that the problem was radical Islam, but you couldn't say it. So if you look at the government documents of that era and even beyond, it's global war on terror. Never radical Islam, never Islamism, never Islamist. But that's what we're facing now. And October 7 hit me hard because it made me realize all that we had missed in the university world. We'd been fooling ourselves. The anti-Semitism that we see now isn't new, isn't more dramatic. It's been there for a long time. When I was being driven here, I thought, why am I in this fight? Why have I been doing it so long? And why do I keep going? And I think back to when I was 19, turning 20, starting my PhD at Harvard, having grown up in the Bay Area, never heard a word against Jews. That's a remarkable childhood. Then I got to Harvard. And after the third comment or so, being as quick as I was, I said, I'm on their side. And I've never looked back. That's what we need. We need more of it, not less. And I was able to, in my mind, dispel all of the binary opposites that I was being told then and since then. Blacks are against Jews, Jews are against Christians, Jews hate Arabs, Jews destroy Palestinians. All of these binary opposites are wrong. They're false. Democrats are better, Republicans are worse. All of these things have been used really to divide us, to destroy Israel, to hurt Jews, to demolish them in the world. And I just saw it differently because, as Leo Terrell said, all you have to do is study history. And the history of our nation is quite different than what K through 16 has been telling our young people. While we're focusing on disbanding trans policies in our schools, how many, aside from Leo, are taking anti-Semitism out of the textbooks, out of the classrooms, out of the teachers? It's a very long process. Because we did our victory laps around some of the big isms, but the one that really remains is Islamism. And you can't call it by its name. You can't really tell the truth without being maligned and called a troublemaker, which I actually like to be called. It's kind of fun, getting into good trouble. But when you think about it, we say it's the political left in the United States and in Europe that's leading anti-Semitism. And we talk about the European capitals and their leaders that want a Palestinian statehood recognized through the United Nations. But what about anti-Semitism on the right? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about how powerful it is? Can we talk about the fact that the focus has been on the Middle East, but what's happening in the West is just as deadly, if not more, because it's better organized and it's anti-Semitism central. It's well-financed, and without it, those in the Middle East don't stand a chance. Those are the reasons that I'm here today, because we're just getting started. And it's always been my view as an adult that anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine in a society. And its twin is racism against African Americans. When those two things get going, there's a sickness in society that can't be beat. And the lies that we're told to divide blacks and Jews stop tonight. The lie that they tell us, thank you. The lie that they tell us that Sephardic Jews participated in the slave trade, they were the big slavers, not quite so. The lie that they tell us that blacks and Jews who worked together to transform America and hence the world in the 50s and 60s, that alliance called the Grand Alliance can never come back because it was rooted in social justice. Jews became rich, we did not. We focused on affirmative action. They focused on wealth and accomplishment. Not true. Social justice as an interpretation of the Hebrew Bible is reason enough to have a coalition of blacks and Jews, but there are many more reasons. Once we dispel the big lies, I think we have a powerful force. And I'd like to make the case that Jews really need us for the simple fact, and this is something that's been hard for me to believe, but I've been told many times, I've read it many times. There are no more than 15 to 20 million Jews on Earth. Is that true? In a world of 8.1 billion people, you kind of need black people because on the continent, we're growing fast and we're good fighters. We like a good fight. We're good people. Don't believe what they tell you. You need numbers. Sometimes you lose just because of numbers. But what's been remarkable about Israel, it defeats all of its adversaries, 7, 8, however many, in small numbers, and never asks anyone to fight for itself, just to support the effort. I'm here to say, you will win, we will win. This is about the West. It's not just about the future of Israel. I have a series going that's remarkable. Some of you will be there in November. If you want to come to beautiful Malibu, let me know. It's not the worst journey. We will win because we're unified, and the lies that have divided us are falling apart. There are more African Americans, more academics who stand with you because we now have an opening to do so. We have seen what the destruction is like. We know that this has to be fixed by pure victory, not partial victory. We haven't won wars in the West in a long time. This one has to work because we all fail if it doesn't. I have a lot more to say, but I think they want me to stop. And I'm trying to dispel another myth, that if you're African American and a professor, you will talk a long time. Thank you so much.
Just to dispel a myth, no, I did not want you to stop. That was incredible. Perhaps there's been no one more prolific in putting pen to paper on the ideas that should guide the Jewish people's political outlook than Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. Under Jonathan's editorial guidance, JNS has risen to become one of the Jewish world's most respected publications. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome editor-in-chief Jonathan Tobin.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks to all of you for being here today. We really appreciate it. On behalf of the editors, the reporters, all the staff, everyone at JNS, I want to thank all of our friends who have helped build JNS, given us the ammunition, helped keep us in the fight against anti-Semitism, against the war on Israel every day. And that's the fight that we're in. And you have helped us do it. The situation that we're in right now is one that I don't have to tell you is dire. You saw the images coming from the UN General Assembly on Friday morning. It told us all we needed to know about the current state of world opinion. When Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went to the podium to speak, he seemed to be there speaking to a mostly empty auditorium. At that moment, the General Assembly seemed to be monitoring and mirroring the surge of anti-Semitism that has swept across the globe since October 7th, 2023. As the Jewish state continues to fight for its life against genocidal terrorists and the Islamist governments that back them, most of the international community is against us. Judging Israel by double standards applied to no other country and demonizing and denying Jewish rights. That's been normalized in the worlds of politics, media, diplomacy, and even popular culture. But rather than pleading for forgiveness and promising to do as its enemies bid him, the Prime Minister exuded defiance and confidence. He didn't give an inch to his country's foes or even those who claim to be its friends who have swallowed Hamas's propaganda and lies. And that was an important lesson, not just for the UN, but for Jews everywhere. And that is one that we at JNS understand to be at the core of our mission. By showing that Israel won't give in to pressure to make suicidal concessions, regardless of how much of the world is against it, Prime Minister Netanyahu sent exactly the right message to an anti-Semitic UN, as well as to Jews around the world. He modeled exactly the sort of pride and willingness to stand alone, if that's what it takes to survive, and that is what is needed more than ever in a world where Jew hatred has once again become acceptable in the public square. What we at JNS do every day is something that is rare in the current media environment, whether you're discussing the legacy liberal corporate press or Jewish outlets. We report the truth about Israel and the battle against anti-Semitism at a time when, to so many, truth doesn't matter. We do so in a manner that is free of left-wing bias or the spirit of partisanship in which Israel's security and Jewish rights are considered less important than staying in sync with liberal fashion. What's needed now isn't morally equivalent advocacy in response to blood libels that justify the murder of Israelis and the silencing, intimidation, and targeting of Jews, or the targeting and signaling them out for violence that we've seen here in the United States since October 7th. As any rational reading of history teaches us, that sort of weakness only encourages the Jew haters and the spread of anti-Semitism, whether on the mainstream left or on the margins of the political right. Those who accept the premise that the problem is Israel's efforts to defend itself are making the same mistake that countless generations of Jews have made in the past. The anti-Semitism we are seeing today is, in that respect, no different from the attacks on Jews that were once commonplace, including during the Holocaust. The period when Jew hatred was confined to extremists was a brief holiday from history. But anti-Semitism is always about the anti-Semites, not what the Jews do or don't do. What the Prime Minister did at the UN was to tell us that Jews who fight successfully for their lives owe the world no apologies for choosing life. Those who falsely judge Israel or who think it should respond to existential threats and the worst mass slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust by essentially taking it as their due aren't just wrong. They are part of a culture in which killing Jews is now considered acceptable. They shouldn't be told that their concerns deserve to be heard or validated. They must be defied. That's a difficult lesson for many diaspora Jews to learn. But if we are to have any hope for our communities to be able to resist the efforts to isolate and break us, then channeling this spirit of defiance that the Prime Minister modeled is the only path forward. This is the same spirit that drives JNS news coverage and its opinion and commentary every day. Let me tell you three things about the current media environment. And in doing that, I have bad news, worse news, and good news. The bad news is that the media bias against Israel is worse than it's ever been before. It used to be that most media bias was rooted in errors, mistakes, sloppiness, and ignorance. Today, it's about ideology. And that's the worst news. The worst news is that as much as we try, we can't fix the mainstream media. The legacy media has been totally taken over by the woke left, whether they admit it or not. And it's not a matter of catching out their mistakes. These mistakes are deliberate. We can't fix the New York Times because the newsroom of the New York Times doesn't think it's in the wrong when it makes a mistake. It has embraced activism in place of journalism. Well, that's the even worse news. What's the good news? The good news is that these outlets matter less than ever. And if you don't believe me, read the election results last year, which was an election not about which newspaper, who the Washington Post did or didn't endorse. It was decided by podcasts, by alternative media, by activism on social media. Now, not everything that is in the new media, in what has come in to fill this void, is good. A lot of it's terrible. But what we do know is that the corporate media, the legacy media that has been taken over by the woke left, they are obsolete. And it is filling that vacuum that independent media like JNS, that's where our opportunity is. And when you invest in JNS, you're not just giving us a job, you're not just helping us be a lone voice in the wilderness, you're investing in the future of journalism and in the truth. We don't know what will happen next in Gaza or in Washington. Well, maybe some people do, but we don't. It's true that far too many on the left and a troubling minority on the right have succumbed to the lies or are using them to justify the anti-Semitism they had all along. But we do know that Israel cannot allow itself to be pressured into letting Hamas win the war it started on October 7th. And the only way to ensure that that won't happen, if it remains defiant, even if it means standing alone. Now, one of the key points of Jewish identity, one of the things that is at the essence of what it means to be a Jew, has always been a refusal to bow down to the idols of popular culture. That was true when we were talking about Hellenism, and now it's true when it's talking about leftist wokeism. That's the same thing. These are the same false idols, and our choice is whether we bow before them or whether, as Matityahu did all those years ago, in 165 BCE, we defy them, we topple them, and that's JNS's job. No matter how much dissenting from mainstream culture and opinion may cost you at this moment, those who care about Jewish survival must stand with Israel. Now, our job is to just do just that, and in doing so, we must model the courage that the Prime Minister showed, that Jews in college campuses throughout the world are showing. And that's what JNS is about. It's not just speaking truth to power. It's not just giving you the ammunition and the facts to talk back to our enemies. It's standing up and showing that we will not lie down, that we will speak, act, think, do anything, save to let those who smear Israel, who lie about the Jewish people, go unanswered. That is what JNS is doing. We thank those of you who have enabled us to stay in the fight, to grow and expand our reach, filling the vacuum in truth-telling about Israel that would continue to spread without us. We promise not to falter and to never give up our own defiant refusal to play the same lying media game that so many other journalists are playing. With God's help and yours, I know that we will prevail. Gamar Chatima Tova, Shana Tova. Thank you. And now I'd like to call up a person who has been a fearless fighter for Israel at the United Nations, in the Knesset, and in a long, and I first met him when we were both at a Beitar convention a long time ago. We won't have any table pounding singing of Shir Beitar, but let me just tell you, there has been no fiercer, greater support, advocate for Israel on the international stage and in the Zionist movement than Danny Danon, the ambassador, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. Yeah. I wasn't being frisked. They were just checking that my mic was working.
Thank you.
Danny, thanks so much for being here, Mr. Ambassador. It's great to have you. I want to start by asking you about the part of your job that we don't see on the news or on the videos of UN meetings. What is going on behind the scenes of the UN to try to persuade other countries not to support this push for Palestinian statehood that gives a reward to them for the atrocities of October 7th and only strengthens Hamas? What are we not seeing? What's the story that isn't being told?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I have many, many friends here, and I'm happy to be here after a very intense week at the UN. But before we begin, I want to set the record straight about the walkout that you mentioned in the General Assembly. That was a show. It was orchestrated by the Palestinian delegation. The people who walked out were not ambassadors. They were staffers from hostile missions that were brought in. The Prime Minister spoke at 9 a.m. He was the first speaker. So they came in order to get out. And when you look at the numbers, and I've counted them, more than 100 ambassadors stayed in the room and listened to the Prime Minister. And those who left, I looked at those countries, they better stay and learn the fact that the Prime Minister described. And when they left, I told them, get out and don't come back. And I meant it. So a lot of things happening at the UN behind the scenes, Jonathan, and we don't see it. Even in the last few days, we saw the charade of leaders coming and condemning Israel, but then quietly they would come and discuss the real issues with me. And I will give you an example. When President Macron came with his great idea about recognizing a Palestinian state, he put in the statement, in the proclamation, that Hamas will not be in Gaza. And when I asked the ambassador from France, how exactly are you going to achieve it? Are you going to send the resolution to Hamas? Or maybe you're going to send an envoy from the Elysee Palace to Gaza? It's on our shoulder, the duty to actually make it happen. And that's what we are doing now. And I think we see the gap between the declarations and reality. But when you sit with them one-on-one, they speak tachlis. They understand that they can give a show because they have domestic interests, or they want to appease someone in the Arab world. But if they want to get something done, we have to speak tachlis. And I believe that's what will happen tomorrow when Prime Minister Netanyahu will step for the first time into the Oval Office to meet President Trump. They will sit down and speak tachlis.
Fair enough. How close is the cooperation between your office and that of the American mission at the UN? Are you working in tandem? And has that cooperation increased, shall we say, in the last several months?
So we work closely. It's my second term. Hi, Gary. I'm the only Israeli to come back to the UN. Don't ask me why after this week. But
I think the term is recidivism, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And I worked with many U.S. ambassadors, with Samantha Power, with Nikki Haley, and many more. And I met Ambassador Mike Waltz, and I want to congratulate him for finally assuming the position. He started a few days ago. And I told him, Mike, you are a great friend of Israel, but you're gonna, deal with many issues. And sometimes, when I sit with my colleagues at the U.S. mission, I tell them, you spend so much energy on us, and we are grateful for that. So we work very closely together, and we are grateful for the bond that we have. And I would say that, you didn't ask me directly, but I'm very direct. You know me for like 30 years, I think, and I have many friends here that I know for many years. I'm very direct. So if you want to ask about the difference between the administration, I will answer that. We got the support also from President Biden at the beginning of the war. But for the Biden administration to come and cast the veto, it was very hard to do it. When you have the administration of President Trump, you see the pride of the US representative walking into the hall of the Security Council, casting the veto against the ridiculous resolution, and then actually posting it all over. So that is the difference.
We see, those of us who follow the UN, because it's our job, a great deal about the Israel bashing there, which is real, and the one-sided anti-Israel resolutions that are passed at the UN and constantly debated disproportionately while ignoring real tragedies elsewhere. But what are the victories that Israel has won at the UN in recent years? What are your achievements, and how big are they, and what are their significance?
So it's hard to speak about victory at the UN nowadays. Since October 7th, we play defense. We push back all the resolutions. And by the way, also what we saw last week, there was no victory for the Palestinians with the recognition. Nothing there. It's empty. No one recognized the Palestinian state. It didn't come to the Security Council. It didn't come to a vote in the General Assembly. It was a show. And I think for us it's important that maybe they will continue with the show and the circus, and we will focus on substance. And I think we have achieved a lot, in the UN in terms of developing relationship with many countries. But now we're still in a war, and we have to make sure that we bring back the hostages. That's our priority. When I wake up every morning, I think about the hostages, how we bring them back, and how we defeat Hamas. And when I hear all the noise and all the pressure, I'm focused. We have to be focused on achieving those two goals. And then I can assure you, Jonathan, we will overcome. We will mend fences with so many countries. That will be the easy part. It will happen very fast. But we cannot allow any hostage, and I'm talking about those who are alive and those who are dead, to stay in Gaza. And we cannot allow Hamas to stay there and regroup against Israel.
Amen. Let me follow up on that a little bit, in that you speak about how when you speak privately with the other ambassadors, the other people at the end, representatives of the UN, that they sing a different tune. Did they know, like everybody in this room knows, that the Palestinian state that they're talking about is a myth, it's fiction, it isn't a real country, it isn't a real government, and to the extent that it is, it's Hamas, it's not, this mythical state they're talking about. Did they know it, or did they pretend about that even in private?
I think they know better. They're not stupid. I think they're playing a game. When President Macron gave an interview last week, and he said there is no Hamas in the West Bank, seriously, give me a break. You give me a name of a village or a city in the Judean Samaria, and I will give you the name of the head of the Hamas there. And we know what happened, and unfortunately, only today, another terror attack, and a soldier was killed. Every day we're dealing with terror attacks in Judea and Samaria. So I think he knows the facts. He's not stupid. But for him, it's a play. He ignores the reality, and he comes and he puts the show. And I think for us, we have to realize that many leaders, they have domestic interests. They have problems, or they have elections, and they come to the UN, and it's a platform to get diversion, to divert the issues, for good or bad. I'll give you another example. I met a leader from a very important Muslim country, and I told him, why I cannot come and visit you in your country? Why we are meeting in somewhere else? And he told me, Danny, for us, when we speak about the Palestinian issue or about Jerusalem, it's a great way to get votes for the campaigns. So I don't want you to be seen around us. And I think the same with the UN. Many of those leaders, they come to speak about, Palestine against Israel, not because they really care about it, because it serves their domestic interests.
Yeah. Now, you've been at the cutting edge of the information battle that we've talked so much about today, and which is at the heart of what JNS is about. And for many years, it's been a perennial theme for as long as we've known each other, which, as you've said, has been a few decades, about the failures of Hasbara, Israeli public advocacy. Supporters of Israel are always saying that, it's not being done enough, Israel's failing, it's always wrong. But as important as that may be, there's also the argument that there is no persuading those who have been driven by toxic left-wing ideology into believing blood libels about genocide, and that it's just far more important for Israel to win the battles on the ground against Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, rather than worrying about the fickle opinions of Western audiences or UN members. What do you think about what the priority has to be when it comes to the information battle, how well we in the Jewish world are doing, and what's the most important thing we should be doing?
Well, I hear every day the blood libels. Sitting in the Security Council, and tomorrow I have another one for 3 hours, blaming us for weaponizing starvation. They come up with ridiculous allegations every week. But it's a clear cut for me. I prefer to have control over the high ground than the PR ground, if we have to choose. Ideally, we can win both of them. But if I have to choose, I prefer to be where we are today, where the IDF troops are around Gaza, and we're showing our might, where we were on October 8th, that Macron came to Israel and said, I will send troops from France to Israel to fight Hamas. Seriously. We don't want anyone to send troops to Israel. The days that Jews were massacred and there was nobody to protect them are over. Today we have the IDF. We have the capability to defend ourselves, and that's exactly what we are doing now. Having said that, we have to improve, and I know many Tila and many great friends here are fighting the fight, to improve where we stand today. And I think we should do a better job. But we have to realize that at the end of the day, it's more important if we get the hostages out of Gaza. It's more important if we defeat Hamas. And then, yes, today it's toxic, what we see in social media, the demonstrations. But at the end of the day, we will prevail. We will overcome this noise and the hostility. But we cannot lose this war. So for me, and I tell it to my colleagues in Jerusalem, I speak with all the ministers almost every day, tell them, listen, don't worry about condemnations or demonstrations. You focus on the goal of defeating the enemy. And that's why I think we have to be strong. And I know that many of you, we all sacrificed a lot in the last 2 years, and it has been painful, but we are strong, we are not broken, and I think we're getting very close to the point where we can declare a victory.
Amen. The sense that we get of the UN, I think, was summed up in something that you spoke out about last week, the scheduling of a meeting about Gaza on Rosh Hashanah, so that Israel wouldn't be there to defend itself. How frustrating is it for you personally to deal with an institution that is so deeply compromised by not just bias, but open anti-Semitism? And do you ever feel that, like, and this is something I think I know a lot of Americans feel, it's like, what are we even doing there? Like, what is the point of the UN? That was kind of a question that President Trump seemed to be asking. And is it worth it? I mean, should Israel keep going on granting the UN the legitimacy by being there itself that is provided by the presence of a representative of the Jewish state in an institution that seems so compromised by anti-Semitism?
So, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke yesterday about the hypocrisy and the double standard at the UN. I'll give you an example. When we attacked Hamas terrorists in Doha, there was a special session of the Security Council, and almost everyone condemned us. And I looked at the ambassador, then I told them, when the US attacked Pakistan, and the ambassador was sitting there, your country, everyone praised the US for getting rid of Osama bin Laden. And when the UK, I told the UK ambassador, when your country took care of terrorists in Iraq and Syria, everyone praised the UK. And I looked at the ambassador of France, and I told him, when your country killed terrorists in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Chad, and other places, it was great. But when we do that, all of a sudden, violation of international law, and they bring all these allegations. It is hypocrisy. But I still think we have to be in the room. I know it's not popular. I know if I had a vote here, we would say, let's get out of this place. I know the feeling. Every day I feel it. But I think it's a mistake, frankly speaking, because if you are not in the room, your allies will not fight for you. When I come to the room and I speak with the US ambassador and the ambassador from the Czech Republic, or President Millet, which Prime Minister, I was in the meeting 2 days ago, they will not do the work for us. And also when you are not in the room, it's much easier to spread the lies and to isolate Israel and to delegitimize Israel. So I think we should be there. Even when we know that, they put the meeting on Rosh Hashanah, and they use double standards and all the tricks. And I'm not talking about what President Trump said about the escalators and other things, but we know that they're not playing a fair game, but we still have to be in the room. And that's what I tell my staff. We go to every meeting, we go to every debate, we participate in every vote, no matter the result.
Finally, you're here, you're Israel's ambassador to the UN, but you're also a symbol for American Jews. You're there fighting for the Jewish people. What do you want to tell American Jews in general at this time of tremendous crisis and anti-Semitism? What do you think is the single most important thing they need to do in order to stand up with Israel, to stand up for themselves?
Well, I know that, some, maybe many are very tired, after the beginning of the war. It's the longest war ever, but we are together. We are together in this war. We are in pain together, but we're also going to win together. And I think we're getting there. We're getting there, and I think the strength and the support and the love that Israel received for the diaspora, and you are paying a price, with anti-Semitism, with violence. Mark, you should come to the U.S. mission to the UN. I don't know why, but the Palestinian demonstrations are not in front of my office on 2nd Avenue. They shifted the demonstrations to the US delegation. And same way here, sometimes you feel the pressure more than the people in Israel. And I know that, you feel that. But I believe that we are strong, we are together, and we will prevail.
Ambassador Danny Danon, the man in the room where it's happening in the UN, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Speaking of the UN, the Lubavitcher Rebbe called the UN the House of Darkness. Danny, thank you for bringing Ambassador Danon light to the House of Darkness. And speaking of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I'm here to tell you that Mashiach is coming. It's not me, but our Chabad friends are here. And I can tell you Mashiach is coming because President Trump has appointed a Chabad rabbi to lead the special envoy of combating anti-Semitism in the White House. Rabbi Yehuda Kaplun. We have the zchut of having many important guests here today. And although you haven't been sworn in yet, and we're waiting for that, we want you confirmed now. Trump praised Kaplun, calling him a strong representative of both the American people and the Jewish people around the world. Rabbi Kaplun, we expect a lot of you. We're looking forward to seeing all the focus and fighting and all the important jobs that you will do around the world with the rise of anti-Semitism here on college campuses and everywhere else that Chabad has reached, and we know that that's everywhere. So Rabbi Kaplun, please join us, and we look forward to soon calling you Ambassador Kaplun.
I promise to be very brief because I'm looking forward to hearing from the Great One. I've been to this shul because I spent many years living on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, davening at Fifth Avenue. The president, when he called me, he asked me if I would serve my country. And then he said, I would like you to be responsible for every Jew in the world. It's not something that I take very lightly. I'm going to share with you a very brief thought. I'm not going to get into policies because the State Department, until my hearing, would be very upset with me. And there's many people in the State Department that are not happy that there's an Orthodox rabbi going to walk the halls of the State Department. I was the first civilian to meet Yarden Bibas after he was freed. Yarden Bibas told me a story. I'm going to share it with you because Thursday night, when we are at Nila, I would like you to think about it, because when we all say the last prayer of Shema Yisrael, I want you to think about this story because it's indicative of who we are. Yarden Bibas, 3 months into his captivity, a Hamas interrogator walked into his room. He took his bottle of water that he was giving to Yarden and he said, Yarden, would you like to be with your family again? Mind you, these animals had already killed his wife and kids. He said, if you will convert to becoming a Muslim, we will move you to Egypt or another country, and you can live with your wife and children. Yarden Bibas turned around. He looked him in the eye and he said, Ani noladi Yehudi, ani amut Yehudi. I was born Jewish, I will die Jewish. Yarden Bibas asked me what happens with those words. I want to tell you, you can be a rabbi and you can never prepare for that question, no matter how long you're a rabbi. I thought for a second and I asked God to put some words in my mouth, and I'm going to share it with you. I said, Yarden, God heard those words. He took out his pen and he wrote those words in his hand, and he placed those words in his heart. And at times of great Jewish troubles, he's going to look at those words. I said, on Yom Kippur, you hit a level that one day that you had, that none of us on Yom Kippur, not the greatest rabbi in the world, can ever reach that level. I want to share with you two simple things that happened with that story. Thursday, before the president bombed Iran, I was leaving the West Wing, and someone said to me from the military, he said, where are you going to be? I said, I'm going back to Miami. He said, have a wonderful Shabbat. But on Friday morning, my phone rang, and it was Yarden Bibas, and he said, Yehuda, I'm sitting here watching missiles hitting Israel. Maybe it's time God looked at those words. The next day, the president sent a message. But you can't make this up as a Jewish nation. Today, on the plane coming here, a lady sitting across the seat from me with a baby looked at me and she said, I know who you are. Well, since I've been nominated, I'm living with police protection. She's an FBI woman who works for the FBI, and she has a 3-month-old baby. And she said, you're the ambassador to become combating anti-Semitism. I said, yes. She said, let me introduce you to Shira. She's named after Yarden Bibas' wife. That's today. We are a nation that will be unbowed. We are not going to apologize for who we are. I promise you that when confirmed, and God willing it will be soon, I promise you one thing. I will walk through the halls of the State Department and around the globe with Gaon Yaakov, with the pride of Yaakov, with the pride of Jacob, with the pride of my forefathers, with those people who have come before us, and on the backs of every Jew who has never apologized for being Jewish. I will not apologize. I will not apologize for who we are. I will not apologize for the roles that we take. We have given this country, we have elevated everywhere we've ever been, and the President, the Secretary of State, Pam Bondi, the Secretary of Education, Harmeet Dillon, you've heard from a very patriotic friend of mine, Leo Terrell. This is a battle the administration is taking extremely, extremely seriously. I have very good friends from the ambassador who just spoke and who's on the front lines, and he has given me a lot of pearls of wisdom about being on the front lines in the State Department and around the globe. So we will build bridges, but we are going to do it unapologetically. Thank you very much. Shana Tova.
I know that this is a modern Orthodox synagogue, but there's been a few references of Chabad here, and there's a few Chabad rabbis here. And they say that behind the executive director of every Chabad house is an incredible rabbi. And that's because everybody knows that the wife actually runs the Chabad house. And we have a few power couples here today, and we saved the best power couple for last. It's my privilege to introduce Julie Strauss-Levin, who has herself served on 2 presidential commissions. She's also served on the Virginia Commission to Combat Anti-Semitism, a lawyer constantly fighting for Jewish rights and the Jewish people. Julie, I welcome you to the stage.
Good evening, everybody. Shana Tova. I would say we're saving the best for last, but it's a little unfair to say since he's my husband. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm sure everyone agrees that tonight's speakers have been unparalleled. Everything they do day in and day out is on behalf of the Jewish people and preserving Western values. And honestly, none of us could do it without them. We are living in a time, ladies and gentlemen, where, and I call it Jew hatred, anti-Semitism has almost become too accepted, too tepid, too mainstream. This is Jew hatred, and we need to call it for what it is. Those who spew it openly, they spew it notoriously, and we know who they are, and they're doing it more and more each and every single day. As Alex said, I work very hard on anti-Semitism matters. I've sat on commissions and so forth. I tell you, not happily, but quite frighteningly so, that post-secondary education has been conquered. I am seeing day in and day out now in K through 12, kindergartners, first graders, second graders are experiencing anti-Semitism in levels that are shocking. Teachers, administrators, principals, they're not doing anything about it. They are telling these Jewish students to sit down, and unfortunately, there's a lot of Jewish groups who are supposedly leaders that are telling parents, sit down, be quiet, just take it, it will go away. It's not going to go away, and each and every one of us has a responsibility to make sure it does not go away. If there was ever a time for clarity, for truth, for leadership, for clear direction, it is now. It is now that we all have to be bold and we all have to be fearless. Hillel the elder said in the 1st century BCE, if I am for myself, who is for me? If I am only for myself, who am I? And if not now, when? When he spoke those words, he spoke not just on a personal level, but on behalf of the Jewish people as a whole. If not now, when? We all have an obligation to speak up now. You know, I'm going to give you one other example of how poisonous what is going on in academia is now before I introduce my husband. The NEA came out with its 2025 handbook this past summer. Here is how they describe the Holocaust. The Holocaust took, can't even read my own handwriting here, took more than 12 million victims of different faiths. What's missing? The word Jews. The NEA handbook doesn't even mention Jews. The NEA is the largest teachers union in our country. This is what we are up against. And that, to me, was the best way to exemplify what we are up against. Now let me talk about my husband for a moment. I'm very proud to introduce this man. We all know that he is never, never shy with his words. He speaks boldly and he speaks with passion. Whether he's on radio, which he's on 5 nights a week, on Life, Liberty, and Levin 2 nights a week, Levin TV, or through his countless books, Mark speaks the truth. He's a student of history, he's a constitutional lawyer, and every single day, he not only educates, but he does it boldly, and he does it fearlessly. His voice is heard around the world, and I can tell you whether we're walking on the Golan Heights or we're sitting at dinner in Jerusalem, or regardless of where we are, people will come running up to him, push me out of the way, and say, I want a photo. And then they'll turn the phone to me and they'll say, can you take the photo, please? And Mark always tries to get me in the photo, and I'm like, no, it's okay. They just want you, honey. So that's who Mark is, and what you see is what you get. And when people say to me, you know, I love Mark, but does he have to speak so loudly? And I say, that, my friend, is passion. And each and every one of us needs to speak passionately. We are at a crossroads, and we better hit the ground running yesterday afternoon. And if you didn't start yesterday, the time to start is right now. So every day, Mark motivates people to speak up and be heard. And with much love and with much admiration, let me introduce my husband, Mark Levin.
brilliant wife, not hard to look at either. I want to thank my wonderful wife, mother-in-law, stepson, the whole family, who are all patriots, all warriors. Alex, Richard, Phyllis, what you've created here is unbelievable. Very, very important. Mr. Ambassador, God bless you and your wife. The Phallics. We're going to do this all night, just so you know. My rabbi, my Chabad rabbi, where are you? Stand up. I can't see him. There he is back there. Let me start at the beginning here. You don't rape Jewish women, decapitate Jewish babies, and execute Jewish men and think you're going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with it. As Israel has demonstrated, you're going to die for it. And that's exactly what you deserve. And that's my view. The way you treat other human beings, these are subhuman monsters. That's what they are. They're called terrorists. It doesn't even seem to matter anymore. Oh, Hamas. Sounds like a food. Oh, man, pass the Hamas. No, I don't think so. No other country in the world, none, is going to tell Israel what to do, how to defend itself and its people, period. I want to say this about President Trump. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I worked for Reagan for 8 years. He's a great man in many ways. Peace through strength, make America great again. Those were 1984 and 1985 slogans. When it comes to Israel, there has never, ever been an American leader, period, like Donald Trump supporting the state of Israel, ever. And as an American, let me also say, I couldn't be prouder of our president defending our cops, defending ICE, securing our border, building up our military, all the things he said he would do, crucially important. There has never been a prime minister like Benjamin Netanyahu. Never. I'm a great fan of Menachem Begin. Great man. Great man. But what Benjamin Netanyahu has had to face, from enemies within and enemies without, is unprecedented. Unprecedented. Even President Trump said to me the other day, and he says it all the time, can you believe they're prosecuting this man? And he's the prime minister of Israel. They're making him sit in that courtroom. Nobody can believe what they're trying to do to one of the greatest warriors ever, ever. And he is the Churchill of our time. And the relationship between, if people understand history, FDR, because Donald Trump in foreign affairs, in many respects, much better than FDR, but the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu remind me, as General Keane said, of the relationship between Franklin Roosevelt and Churchill. Franklin Roosevelt didn't always agree with Churchill, but Churchill felt he had to do certain things, and he did certain things. That's what allies do. They work these things out. It's an ally, it's an alliance, it's a partnership. Unlike the prior administration that was undermining the Israelis, undermining Benjamin Netanyahu, trying to replace him, trying to topple him, on and on and on. So let me just say that we are deeply lucky to have these two men. The ambassador is here. He's here. We've talked about the UN. Look at the Lilliputians. I speak for myself, not for you. Look at the leader of France. He's an embarrassment. He's pathetic. Look at the Quisling who runs Britain. He is pathetic. Even the people in Britain hate him. Look at the jerk in Canada. Yeah, look at the jerk. These are all left-wing governments, by the way. Look at the moron in Australia. Look at them. Look at all four of these guys. That's the West. But look at their opposition parties. To a party, they've said, if we're elected, we will reverse the position of our government on this Palestinian state issue. All four countries. That's conservatives. This issue of anti-Semitism can't be wished away. It's on the rise. It's spreading like a poison. It's all throughout Europe. And what's interesting in Europe, when you look at this guy, Tommy Robinson, in Britain, who they call a white nationalist. He's not a white nationalist. He's trying to defend his country, Professor Skinner, against the Islamists who are conquering Europe. If you go back and you read the so-called scholars in the 1960s of these Islamists, they tell you they're going to use immigration to conquer the West. It's revolution by immigration. For 4 years, our border was open, and we're paying a price for it. In Europe, their borders are still open, and they're paying a price for it. Which are the countries that support Israel? Hungary, their border's not open. Argentina, their border's not open. You have elements in the Dutch. Their borders are open, but they're trying to close them, the opposition party and so forth. This is, right now in Europe, it's the left, mostly, not exclusively, that has turned on itself, the West, and has turned on the Jews. Leo did probably the most brilliant explanation of this I've ever heard, Leo. And you're exactly right. Professor Skinner, you too. This is a war on us. They seek to destroy us. And rather than beat our chest, we need to understand they are destroying us. But they won't win. Not in America, anyway. There's just too damn many stubborn, red-blooded Americans to put up with it. I can't say the same for Europe. There aren't a lot of red-blooded Americans over there. This is a battle we have on the radical left, what I call the fusion of the Marxists and the Islamists. That's what you see in the streets. That's what's taking place. Some people call it the green, red, whatever. I've been talking about this for 10 years on the radio, and it's here. It's in our universities. It's in our, as Julie was talking about, K through 12. It's in our media. It is this fusion of Marxism and Islamism, and you see it all over Europe, the fusion of the left wing and Islamism. But we have another problem in our country, and that is people on the right. I don't even like to call them on the right. They're just nuts who have platforms, who are podcasters, like Tucker Carlson, as I call him. We need to name names. Luckily, that name stuck. I don't mean Tucker, I mean Carlson. Then we have Candace Owens. And we have others who kind of want to walk the line. Well, it's all right, thank you. But then we have others who kind of walk the line. That's right. Who want to be sort of one or the other. This is a cancer. It's affecting our young people. They affect our young people, and then they say, look, all these young people are turning against Israel. This is a cancer. We need to fight it. We need to speak out against it. I decided in May, I'll take it upon myself to start. Why? And I'm not going to get into the meeting, because I met with the president. There was a discussion, whatever. And this guy puts a post out about how I'm going to start World War III. or how I'm going to get all these Americans come. I'm thinking, how? We don't have an infantry there, but we're going to do it. You see, and he goes on and on, that I'm a neocon. His father was a neocon. I've never been a neocon in my life. I'm a Reaganite. That's how I started out, a traditional conservative. His father was a Democrat in the Reagan administration, and Tarleton worked for Bill Kristol, who's a neocon, at a magazine that was a neocon magazine, and he's running around. Look, the bottom line is these people need to be exposed. So I told my wife, I said, look, I got to go into the sewer for a few months. I don't want to go in the sewer. I got to go in the sewer. That's where these bastards are. They're in the sewer. We're going in the sewer. She said, go. So I went in the sewer. I'm not completely out yet, trying. They need to be fought where they are. They need to be confronted where they are. They need to be exposed for where they are. They're getting more radicalized, more extreme, and in some ways that's actually helpful. Here's what bothers me. I don't see many of our elected leaders speaking out against these people. Do you? Do you? Why? They're not that powerful. They think they're powerful. They're not that powerful. We need to rise up, speak against these people. We need to make sure our younger generation isn't corrupted by these people. And we can do this at the dinner table, at the breakfast table, here, any meetings or associations or seminars or whatever it is. We can't ignore it anymore. We must confront this now. Because quite frankly, the Democrat Party is gone. It's gone. There's a Fetterman here and what else is there? We're in the city where they're likely to elect this Marxist Islamist Jew hater, which is the city with more Jews in the United States than any other city in the country. How does this happen? Well, I tell my wife, I don't care about how or why, I care about victory. That's all I care about. We have to crush them. We have to defeat them. We have to use our brains. We have to use our capabilities. We have to use our media. We have to use everything we have. I don't care about why. I don't care about any of the rest of that. I'm not a psychiatrist, nor do I need a psychiatrist. I know the enemy, and I know evil when I see it. Victory is the only way to deal with it. They're very thin-skinned, by the way. Very thin-skinned, which is why mocking them is a very good thing. They don't like to be mocked. It's a big, big problem. This anti-Semitism is growing in the country, also because, as people have said, it is funded. The main country funding it is Qatar. Q-A-T-A-R. I think they changed the pronunciation, but it's always Qatar to me. Qatar. Qatar plays a double game. Peacenik and warmonger. Peacenik, nobody notices, don't worry. Bye-bye. Yeah. Peacenik and a warmonger. And they've bought a lot of America. Businessmen, politicians, ex-politicians, law firms, sports groups, they try and present a picture of a mainstream entity. They are a terrorist organization. They supported and funded the Taliban. Oh, we got somebody back. Did you see that? We got somebody back from the Taliban, thanks to Qatar. Excuse me, seriously? Oh, Qatar's the mediator with Hamas. They funded Hamas. Now they're the mediator with Hamas? I'm sorry, I'm not stupid. I see Qatar. And now Qatar, of course, wants an apology from Israel for trying to take out the Hamas leadership. The Hamas leadership. I think we in America need an apology from Qatar. I think Israel needs an apology from Qatar. I think free people all over the world need an apology from Qatar, because Qatar is spreading more terrorism than any country on the face of the earth. And there are many of them that are doing it too. Now look at the Middle East. I'm rambling, but that's what I do. Look at the Middle East. It's completely changed, thanks to your government. Completely changed in 2 years. I keep hearing this war is going on a long time. It is going on a long time. When you have 9 million people, and you have the people who work in cafes and taxis and all, who are part of the fighting forces, and people in their cabinet with children who are also fighting, and their ambassador to the United States who lost his son in this war. These people, they're not just fighting, their families are fighting. Their cousins are fighting, their fathers are fighting. It has an impact on the economy, it has the impact on a nation's psychology and everything else. Look what they've done. 9 million people. I don't even know how many Arabs there are. What are there, 150 million? I don't know, maybe even more than that. You would think Israel's the empire attacking this poor little Arab nation. No, Israel's the tiny little country. They're the empire with tens of millions of people in 27 countries or whatever. It's unbelievable. So, they all turn on Israel. Europe turns on Israel. Why? Because Israel was supposed to sue for peace, like usual. Take the hit, whatever it is, fight for a year or so, and then sue for peace. This time's different. Victory. Victory. Hamas. Hamas is dead if they'll let them finish him. But Hamas is begging for survival. That's what's holding on to these hostages. That's all they have. Hezbollah, the most brilliant tactic the world has ever seen. By the way, how many of you in here have cell phones? Make sure you turn them off. It's a joke that the Prime Minister was using. It's a good joke. Maybe not here, but other places. Iran. Looks like a paper tiger by the time Israel was done with Iran. I mean, you don't even hear from them anymore. Now, you know they're doing stuff, but still. And the Houthis, it's still left to the Israelis to deal with the Houthis. Everybody else has left the field, pretty much. In the Middle East, Israel is respected more today than ever before, despite what they say, despite the UN. It is a powerful military, maybe one of the top 4, 5, 6 in the world, with 9 million people. This is extraordinary, what Israel has accomplished. And I also want to say this. Their technology is beyond belief. They have, a couple of years ago, I was talking to David about they need to develop this laser stuff. This will be a game changer. I mean, take all this stuff out. There they are with the laser. First, before us, before the Japanese, before the South Koreans, before the Chinese, before the Russians. First. And what are they going to do? They're going to share it with us. Iron Dome. The first with a nationwide dome. I'm not going to get into it. I know information from my days at Justice. We don't have a dome. A couple of cities are protected. That's it. Now we're going to build a dome. Where do you think we're going to get some of our technology from? Them. Israel. And I also have this other thought that I mentioned the other day. I just kept thinking about it. What if there wasn't an Israel? What if there wasn't an Israel in the Middle East? What would happen to the United States? How many of you here actually believe that if there wasn't an Israel, most of these Arab countries would be our allies, as opposed to the Chinese and the Russians? Are you kidding me? These are dictatorships. These are genocidal regimes. They have much more in common with the communist Chinese and the fascistic Russians. They would have no reason to be aligned with us. I am convinced that one of the reasons some of these countries are not aligned with our enemy and are more aligned with us is because of Israel, because they don't know what to do about Israel, so they talk to the United States. And I really believe that. Now, I'm asked when I come in here, as if I'm Nostradamus, what do I think is going to happen with these discussions that are probably going on now and tomorrow on these big, big issues? I don't have any inside information. But let me give you Mark's position. There will never be a Palestinian state. Period, period, period. It can be put on paper, there can be promises, there can never be a Palestinian state. When you show me the Mahatma Gandhi or the Martin Luther King of the Palestinians, maybe I'll think about it. Tell me, who is the peace leader among the Palestinians? Does anybody know? There aren't any. That's what we know. If there was a vote today, 80% would vote for Hamas. That's exactly what would happen. That's the indoctrination of it. No, you don't get your own country. That's number one. Number two, it's just Mark, Judea and Samaria. That's where our faith was born. It was born right there. You can go to Shiloh, and you can look at it. It's not Palestinian territory. My dad used to say, he wasn't all that religious, but he had a lot of common sense. He loved Israel and never went to Israel. He said, please show me the Palestinians in the Bible. I said, they're not there. He said, case closed. That was it for him. But when it comes to Judea and Samaria, what is this West Bank stuff? 1948, Jordan steals this land and calls it the West Bank. If we're going to call it anything, maybe we should call it the East Bank of Israel. What do you think of that, Mr. Ambassador? So it's the East Bank of Israel, if that makes people happy. Israel can never, ever give up those areas and that land to the Palestinians or anybody else, period. Period. No other country has the authority to make declarations. It's so funny. Let me ask you something. California, Texas, New Mexico, maybe some other areas, those were Mexican, were they not? Were they not, Leo? We defeated the Mexicans and we took them. Do we have any discussion about returning them, quote unquote, to the Mexicans over our dead body? We're not going to return California. You know what? Maybe we should return California. That's a whole other story. California, New Mexico, Arizona, you look at these areas, they're not going anywhere. In fact, we're taking the Panama Canal, we're taking Greenland, we got a whole bunch of great ideas, and I'm for them. So the oddity of an area that is the home of the Jews, the birth of Judaism, 4,000 years ago, that's occupied, is so absurd. You look at any other country, look at Russia, look at China, look at all these countries that walk out of the UN and so forth and so on. Israel has a claim to Judea and Samaria in a way that no other country has a claim to anything else. Anything else. That's right, it's God-given. And so those are two little hurdles as far as I'm concerned when it comes to this sort of thing. And of course, Israel needs to be able to have 100% security. Those IDF soldiers didn't fight and die to surrender Israel's security to somebody else. But I take heart in knowing that we have President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and these are two men that have America's interests at heart, that have Israel's interests at heart. And I see, God bless you, and I see in every one of these instances at the UN or elsewhere, it's the United States voting, the United States voting, the United States says no, the United States says no. And I know if Biden were in there, the United States would be thrown in with the enemy and our adversaries and so forth. So I'm deeply heartened that Donald Trump is our president, and I feel strongly that he'll do the right thing by the United States and the state of Israel, as he would with all of our other allies too. And I feel strongly Prime Minister Netanyahu will do the very best he can. You know, no offense, the Israeli governmental system is like the Italian governmental system. No offense. You got parties with 3 people who get a say at the table. I'm saying, who's this guy? He just decided to create a party, gets 12 votes, and he decides who the government's going to be. I'm saying, who set this up? The European socialists who founded Israel, they set it up. It's the biggest pain in the ass you can possibly imagine. Excuse my French. Because if Netanyahu were running on his own, he would win, he'd have his cabinet, so forth and so on. But there they are. What's Moshe think, the secretary of widgets over here? He's got an objection. Oh my God, Moshe. You get my point? I love our system a lot more, by the way. Let's see, what else can I ramble about? I took notes on this. Let me just say one other thing. The people in this room, thank you. Every one of you, you're not up here, you may not have a formal title, it doesn't matter. Every one of you is very meaningful. The things that you do are very, very important. And I want to thank you. You're here for a reason. Why the hell they have a meeting here, which takes 3 hours to get here, I'll never know, through the traffic and so forth. But here we are. And I just want you to know, you're all important. You all matter. You come up to me, I cannot tell you how honored I am. People say, how do you do this? How do I do what? I have a big mouth. That's how I do it. It's either at the dinner table or behind a microphone or on television. It's a great honor. And I want to thank you all for what you do in government, out of government, whether you're well known or not known, it doesn't matter. You in your heart and your soul, you know you're doing something wonderful. This news outlet is crucial. I go to it every day. I look at it every day. I want to know what's going on, what's thinking. Where's Tobin here? This man's unbelievable. His columns are unbelievable. There are others too, there are contributors too. I want to thank them as well. Keep heart, keep fighting. We American Jews, remember what they're doing in Israel. They've been up against it. The least we can do in this country is to fight hard, back them, back our country. God bless you. Be safe. I love you all. I really do.
We have a special treat, a special surprise. It's not a speech, but it's an opportunity to really say thank you and recognize a real warrior, a real hero, the face of October 7th. We all saw her on TV. We all prayed for her. We were all excited when she came out. Noah Gamani, please join me on stage. Noah just got off a flight. She's not going to speak to us tonight, but I want to take a moment to recognize this real lioness of Judah, who from the moment she got out has been fighting tirelessly for our brothers and sisters. She has not had one moment of rest. We are praying for Avinatan. We are praying for all of our hostages. And tonight would not have been complete without thanking you for everything that you've done for the Jewish people. And we pray that we will continue to hear good news and success like yours. יצא מושלם, ממש.
We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of October 7th. We've been through a lot of pain and hurt, and we're still fighting on the kinetic battlefield, on the diplomatic battlefield, but we have seen so many miracles throughout this war. We have seen thousands of ballistic missiles fired at Israel. Each one could kill hundreds, if not more. And within 12 days, without losing a single pilot or a single plane, we took out the nuclear program of Iran, something we never thought we would be able to do. We didn't know how we would get that opportunity, but we did it. The fight is still ahead. We're going to buckle down. We are going to win on the battlefield, and we're going to win the information war, Thank you so much for being with us tonight. L'shana tova, gemar chatima tova. May we all be sealed in the book of life for good health and success this year. Thank you.